Welcome back, everybody. Gaming Grandpa here with part 9 of my MLS Explained tutorial for Football Manager 23. This is also the last section dealing with acquiring players for your roster. Before I get into the remaining ways to acquire players, I want you to understand what the term waiver means. If you're an American and you watch any other sport, you should already know what a waiver is, because every sport in the U.S. has the waiver and a waiver wire, waiver list, and everything else. A waiver is the act of intentionally relinquishing or abandoning a known right, claim, or privilege. In this case, when you waive a player in the MLS from your roster, you're waiving the rights to that player. The MLS rights are no longer yours. They fall back to the league, and whoever takes that player later, then they get the rights. There's no trading for rights or anything like that, because I am intentionally getting rid of this player. Another thing that you have to understand, in the off season, when you go under the contract, you will not see waived player. You'll see released player. When you release a player, and I'll get into that later, it's different than waiving a player. All right. Any player can be released or waived at any point in the season. When they're released after the initial squad registration date, which this year it's March 4th, March 5th, you can't release them. It's now waived player. All right. Keep in mind that when you waive a player, according to the different dates that I covered in previous episodes, or if they have a guaranteed contract, as I covered in previous episodes, you're still responsible for their contract if a team doesn't waive them or sign them. Also, according to draft rules, some of these players that are waived, that clear waivers, can enter a waiver or reentry draft depending on the previous episodes that I already showed you. Now, once a player is waived, the best way I can explain what the waiver wire is, you get say you have a portfolio page on this player with his information and his picture and everything else. When a club waives a player, the league takes that picture and puts it on the bulletin board and lets everybody see this player's on waivers. That's what a waiver wire is. It's pretty much, you'll get an email notification of the day after players are waived, and it will tell you they're on the waiver wire, and you basically have 2 days to claim them while they're on the waiver wire. Now, when you claim them, you have an order, just like you do all the drafts, on who has the right to claim that player first. So if multiple teams submit a claim on that player, the highest one in the order will get to claim him. All right. One thing to keep in mind as an expansion team, this is the only situation where you are not first. Expansion teams are automatically at the end. So this year, I am number 29 on the order. So if there's any players that another team has put a claim on, I'm not going to get them. That's just how it works. Once you place a claim and it's processed, then you move to the back and everybody else moves up one. Does that make sense? I know a lot of people complain about the waived players, that the AI sucks in the MLS and they go out and sign all these star players and then they can't register them, and then you have 100 players that are on waivers. No, that's not true. It's just like you would do in your team when you first come in. There's players you want to release on a free. There's players you want to let run out their contract. There's players you don't want on your team. The MLS AI has the same things. That's just like, how many times have you tried to play an MLS save that you couldn't register certain players and you had to waive them? It happens. I mean, it's always going to happen. That's why they have this waiver wire. There's not an overabundance of young stars on the waiver wire. I mean, yes, you're going to find a gem here and there, but the majority of the players that are on the waiver wire are players that team felt couldn't do them any good. Maybe they're 21 years old and they're just not up to speed for their first team, so they thought they'd waive them. It could be an older player. It could be a player that has a humongous contract and they're hoping this is the best way to get them off their wage bill. You know, there's all kinds of reasons, but after March 4th this year, I got the email with the waiver list, and there was only 30 players. That is not bad at all. That's an average of 1 player per team. And there were some teams that didn't even waive anybody. So please get that myth out of your system. It's not true. Okay? Also, when you claim a player off waivers, as you can see down below in that image, I can select the option to claim him off waivers. If I am the one that wins that claim, I assume that player's current contract. So be careful with squad registration. If you're already at max limit on squad registration, that doesn't mean you can't claim a waiver. But if that player has a senior contract, then you're going to be in a little bit of trouble. I will show you different things like that in another video, but just keep that in mind with the contracts. What I recommend to you to do is, if no other team has processed a claim, let that player clear waivers. Once he does, he's an unrestricted free agent, and 9 times out of 10, you can get him on a supplemental contract if it's a youngster, and you can move him to your B team. Not only that, but it'd be cheaper. So just keep that in mind. There are a bunch of little tricks that you can do. All right. When is it a good time to claim a waiver? If it's a player that you cannot live without, and you are higher in the order than everybody else, then by all means, put in a claim out on a player. That's not a big deal. Hopefully you can offer him a new contract down the line. Hopefully it's not a DP or an under-22 initiative. Hopefully you have slots for him. Because if you don't, then you're still going to be at the back of the order of the waiver list, but you're not going to be able to get that player. So keep all them things in mind. Now, trades. Here is another system in the MLS that a lot of people think are broken. What I mean is, I hear a lot of complaints about, the trade system don't work. It's just crap. One thing you have to understand about the MLS is that the MLS undervalues everything, and there's a reason for that. The MLS created all these rules and contract situations so teams don't go bankrupt. How many times have you had teams that are in administrative review or they're financially bankrupt? I mean, the MLS has created all these ways to help teams from doing that. That's why in this picture, for this player, Cucho Hernandez, the max amount of assets I can offer is $825,000. It varies per player. Sometimes it's less than that, sometimes it's more than that. That's why sometimes when you think you should get a better trade incoming for a player, you don't, and that's why. Okay? One cool thing is that you can ask your general manager for his input. Like I did. I selected $825,000 and he popped up with, if you want this player, this is what I think is fair to offer Columbus. Now, there's a chance they might not take it. There's a chance they would. Maybe I could offer allocation money instead of giving up my very valuable international slots to me. But once again, teams value assets differently. International slots, I bought one from Vancouver for 3 years for $100,000 allocation money. Then I went to Seattle and tried to get one. They wanted $200,000 for 1 year. So every team values their assets differently. One thing to keep in mind when you're trying to make a trade is that, does this team, what is it going to take to let them take my crap player? What would you pay for a crap player? Average players, you have a better way of getting rid of in the trades, but once again, it's just like when you go to a new club and you're trying to clean out your roster. Some of these players really stink. They have high wages. Do you think teams want that? You wouldn't want it. So, no, it's not broken. It's just you're not doing it right. And I'm going to have a video coming up here after this one that will show you how to do trades. Youth Academy. The Youth Academy, once again in the MLS, is your youth intake. You don't have really any pull other than trying to get affiliate clubs and improving your scouting knowledge on your youth intake. But you don't have any control over the contracts or anything. All you can do from a player in your Youth Academy is sign them to a big boy contract. That's the only contract you're allowed to sign them. You cannot sign them to a full contract for your B team or anything else. So keep that in mind. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't sign players. I signed 5 players from my Youth Academy this year in my save. And I immediately sent them back on loan, or I moved them to my B team, or in this case, as you can see in the image, 2 of them, the top guy, Carrillo, and Salas at the bottom, are on loan. That's because the Youth Academy wanted them back, and they're still of age, and they're valuable to them, so I sent them back on loan. But the Youth Academy is a very valuable way of collecting players for your MLS roster. And another thing about that, there's only been, I think, a couple times in my lifetime of playing MLS saves that I've ever had a Youth Academy kid want a senior contract or higher. The reasons for that is because they turned out to be wonder kids. But generally, they're going to want a reserve or senior minimum salary contract, and that works out great because you can move them anywhere you want to, and it doesn't really matter. Your B team is another really good way of getting players. Everybody, when you first take over a team, you check your squad, you check your development center, and it's no different than MLS. A lot of times there's some decent players in your B team. I have a few of them that I have brought up already that I think are going to do wonders for me. But once again, just like Youth Academy, you cannot offer players contracts to put them in your B team. What I mean is, if you go out and find a free agent, you have to offer him a senior contract. A senior contract. You can't offer him, supplemental senior, a senior team contract. You can't offer him a B team contract. It doesn't work like that. If you look at the image down below for Mike Wilson, you notice he's been offered a contract for $25,000 a year. That's not me. That's a full-time contract. I can't do that. One thing you should do is go into your staff responsibilities and delegate, as I have for my St. Louis City 2, which is my B team or your reserve team. I have my head of youth development finding players. He found Mike Wilson. My general manager he offered him a contract, and I have final say-so on whether I want these players on my team. That I highly recommend you to do that. That's how you keep your B team full of young players. Another thing you could do is you could sign a bunch of free agent young players that just got waived and cleared waivers and put them in your B team, which is what I've been doing. You're allowed to have 35 players in your B team, so make use of all of that. Now, the cool thing about the B team is once they have a big boy contract, you don't have to move them up immediately. If you have an opening and you want to give them some play time to see how well they're going to do, move them up. You could always move them right back down. That's the cool thing about your B team. They don't have a say-so in it. Unlike sending them out for loans where they can, reject the loan, in your B team, they don't have any choice. You can move whatever player you want to your B team at any time, and they don't have any control over it. So that is a really good thing that you can take advantage of. All right. Another way you can get players, other than transfers and loans, I didn't feel the need to cover that because we're all, it works exactly the same in the MLS as it does the rest of the world, other than contracts and stuff like that, which I've already covered, is your affiliate clubs. Now, when you first start out in St. Louis or an expansion team, you're not going to have any affiliate clubs. And it's going to take a lot of arguing with them to get some, but it's possible. I have a senior affiliate now, Manchester United, and I have a regular affiliate club that I can send players out on loan to, which is North Carolina. But it's a good way to find players, especially when you get into your save 3 to 4 years later and the board lets you pick a team you want an affiliate from with the purpose of signing players. That's a good way. But anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. This ends the acquiring players section. I am going to have a video coming up that's kind of like I call live action. I'm going to show you ways to deal with trades and how to get them accepted. So anyway, if you have any comments or questions, by all means, please leave me some feedback. I will reply as quick as I can. Leave a thumbs up if you like what I'm doing and subscribe because there's a lot more to come. Anyway, have a good day, guys, and thanks again.